Good evening, everybody, and welcome. We're going to start the evening with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Phyllis Honig, our Vice President.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What an amazing turnout. This is fabulous. Can you hear me, Brian? Okay. So my name is Eileen Riley. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Putnam County. We are extremely happy to see so many, I had to bring this down, to see so many Putnam County residents present tonight. As you know, candidate forums and debates are a very important process, a very important part of the democratic process. A huge thank you to our candidates for participating this evening and providing us the opportunity to listen to them speak about their experience and what they plan to accomplish for their constituents when they are elected. We will listen to their positions on the issues and we'll have a clear idea as to who we will vote for on Election Day. Thank you to the elected officials and other candidates who are in our audience tonight. I had a card. I have a few names down, but Kenny Schmidt, I see you over there in the corner. Kenny Schmidt, our Town of Carmel Town Supervisor. I see Lynn Eckhart in the rear, Southeast Town Council Board Member. Kathy Croft. Why don't you stand up so people can see who you are? The Deputy Commissioner for the Board of Elections. Who did I miss? Elected officials, did I miss anybody else?
I'm here, Nancy Montgomery.
Oh, Nancy, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'm thinking of you as a candidate tonight. I have you on my candidate collection here.
Oh, not tonight.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
All right. I saw Terrence Murphy in the house. I think he went out to get a bite to eat because he's last to speak this evening. And if we have no other elected officials, what other candidates are in the room besides those who will be speaking tonight? Can you, what? Can you identify yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Francesca Haggis-McHale. I'm running for Mount Pleasant Town Board.
Oh, welcome. I believe.
I'm Nancy Montgomery. I'm running for Putnam County Legislator District 1.
Those who are going to speak, I haven't announced. We also have another, we may have one or more leagues here tonight from Westchester. And so welcome to that league. Thank you for being here tonight. We have so many people in this room, but we'll stick with just the elected officials and candidates who are not speaking tonight, and we'll take it from there. So, we invited both candidates for the Southeast Town Council to participate tonight. Unfortunately, candidate Eric Larka was not able to change an important work commitment and therefore was not able to attend. In accordance with league guidelines, a candidate meeting with only one candidate physically present is an open or empty chair candidate meeting and cannot be allowed at any level of league for any elected position. Ms. Melinda Montanaro, candidate for the Southeast Town Council seat, is in the audience, and at the conclusion of our forum, she will be available to speak with audience members. Ms. Montanaro, please stand up and let yourself be recognized. And thank you for coming tonight. Okay, so one last thing. I wanted to remind everybody that absentee ballots are to be mailed to the Board of Elections no later than November 5th or hand-delivered to the Board of Elections by November 6th. And then, as you enter the room tonight, you were handed index cards by our league members for you to write down your questions for the candidates. We request that you specify which office your questions are directed to, and that you please include your name if you are comfortable doing so. You are reminded that your questions are to be relevant to the position sought by the candidate and are not to be of a personal nature. You will note that the index cards are unique to assure that questions asked of the candidates are prepared by the audience members only. Our league has prepared a few questions as well in the event that we have a shortage of questions for the audience, which I hope is not the case.
Oh, that's not covered.
Wonderful. I should never pick my head up here. Our league, there we go, I was there. Please raise your hand, and a league member in the room will collect your completed index card or provide you with an additional card if you would like one. All questions will be vetted by league members to sort out duplicates and assure legibility before being forwarded to the moderator, who will read the questions. Refreshments are available at the rear of the room. A donation container has been set up at the refreshment table, and we ask that you make a donation to our league's high school scholarship fund. I will now introduce you to our moderator this evening, who does not live or vote in Putnam County. Ms. Catherine Daring is a board member of the League of Women Voters of Northeast Westchester, serving the towns of Bedford, Lewisboro, Mount Kisco, Pounds Ridge, and North Salem. Please give a warm welcome to Catherine.
Oh, good, she left me this.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Eileen. I'm happy to share this evening with all of you, moderating a forum. We have 4 races being represented here, so we will have to move quickly through our schedule. The candidates tonight have seen and agreed to the rules for the forum. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, followed by audience questions. Answers to the questions will be no longer than 1.5 minutes. And a little different from some of our earlier meetings, each candidate will have the opportunity for 2 rebuttals with extra time or extra time of 1 minute. 2 colored cards have been given to each candidate for this purpose. Our first 2 candidates tonight will be, I have to go through my pieces of paper here. Our first 2 candidates tonight will be Joseph Castellano and Scott Ring. Have each of you been given your rebuttal cards?
Yes.
Oh, that's your, all right, so you get 2 possible rebuttals. And you will hold them up when you want to use it. Each card allows for 1 minute of rebuttal or adds 1 minute to their remarks. And it can only be used during the question and answer period. Following the Q&A, each candidate will have 1 minute for closing statements. Due to the number of candidates and the length of this forum, we may not be able to accommodate every question we have over there. As you can see, there's a big sorting process. We do have a lot of overlaps, like I think we have 6 questions on healthcare, and we have 4 on gun control, that sort of thing. So if you don't hear your question answered, you'll hear another slightly different version of it read by me, all right? Video recording is prohibited. We have someone who's doing a video record for us all, so no personal or media videotaping is permitted, so no cell phones being held up to record. The League's unedited video will be shared on the League of Women Voters Putnam County Facebook page via a YouTube feed, all right? And now is the time to silence cell phones. I actually think I didn't silence mine, so I'm going to scoot over there in a minute. Our timekeepers this evening will be Julie Boyd and Stephen Hauser, who are members of the League of Women Voters. They have a valuable job So when they have, candidates have 30 seconds left to speak, the 30-second card will come up, and when they have overrun their time, the stop sign will be displayed prominently. Now to the forum. Due to our time constraints, please hold all applause until the end, all right? The first race, the candidates for County Legislature District 7, Joseph Castellano and Scott Ring. A coin toss determined who would go first, and it was determined that Mr. Castellano will present his opening statement first, and Mr. Ring will follow. We will then rotate the order for the remainder of the forum. Candidates, I don't know whether this was explained to you yet, but you have little microphones that can be attached to your lapel or left on the, held in your hand. But you'll have to turn on your mic before speaking and turn it off while your opponent is speaking so that there's not a lot of feedback. Otherwise, we get the big ringing noise, which is not very helpful. So let's, if you want to practice that for a second.
Test.
All right, then with no further ado, let's start with Mr. Castellano. 2 minutes.
Okay.
I hope everybody can hear me. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. By way of introduction, my name is Joseph Castellano. I'm the current Putnam County legislator, representing the southwest corner of the town of Southeast and the southeast corner of the town of Carmel, also known as Mayapack, Legislative District 7.
Bring that a little closer.
Okay. I was first elected in 2012. I'm seeking my third 3-year term. I'm a public servant with over 23 years of experience in county government. I am employed at the Westchester County Clerk's Office. I am the program coordinator of the legal division at the State Supreme Court in White Plains. My wife Elizabeth and I purchased our first home in Brewster over 20 years ago. I have 2 college-age daughters, so I have my own League of Women Voters at home. And they keep me straight and honest and try to help everyone best I can. Very proud of my legislative career. I've been the chairman of the Audit and Administration Committee for the 6 years I've been on the legislature. I became the deputy chairman of the legislature 3 years ago. Last January, I was unanimously selected by my colleagues to be the chairman of the Putnam County Legislature. Under my tenure with the Putnam County Legislature, I've maintained 5 budgets, all under the Albany tax cap, soon to be 6. We've eliminated $17 million in short-term debt. In the past 6 years, we've also eliminated $15 million of long-term debt. We've also paid down $8.5 million of state pension, saving Putnam County taxpayers over $750,000. We've all done this while struggling to fight the unfunded mandates from the state, which represents 70% of our budget. I'm very proud of the Putnam County properties that we have helped improve over the last 6 years, the Putnam County Golf Course, Tilly Foster, and the Putnam County Bike Trail. We continue to repair roads, rebuild bridges, and I'm here seeking your support to continue the good work that we've done in Putnam County. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold your applause till the end, and Mr. Ring.
Can you hear me? Zach? Sorry. My name is Scott Ring. I'm running for the first time for public office. I'm running because I want to do as good as I can. I don't know how to turn the volume down. Oh. I'm running to do as best I can for the county. I have a 3-month-old son. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. I'm going to be here for a while. And I want to make the county as best as I can for as long as I can. When elected, I'm going to do what I can, not just to meet the tax cap. I'm going to try to not raise taxes. So I don't want to be satisfied with 2% raises. I want to be satisfied with 0% raises. It's important that people that move here get the low cost of living that they bargained for. It's important that people that chose Mayapack over Yorktown or Putnam over Westchester are afforded the affordability that they thought they were getting. We have trouble here in Putnam where our house values don't go up, but the cost of living does. For the last 6-7 years, Putnam County government has raised taxes. Now, it's not the biggest part of your bill, but it's a raise in taxes. I don't sound like a Democrat when I say this, but I do not want to raise taxes. I like a challenge. I like to, look at these unfunded mandates and work with them. If I didn't like a challenge, I wouldn't be running for office as a Democrat in Putnam County. But here we are, and my plan is to cut spending where we can, to really inspect, to raise non-tax revenue if we can. People think that the only way government can raise revenue is by raising taxes, but there are other ways, and we need to investigate those ways, and we need you. I'm going to be working for you. You're my boss, and I'm going to make sure that I listen to my boss and that I don't get fired. So over the next 3 years, I will help lower taxes the best I can. I have to work in a bipartisan way because I'll be one Democrat with 8 or 7 Republicans, and we're going to have a continuation of success and low-cost living here at Putnam.
Thank you. Okay. All right, was everyone able to hear both of the candidates? I think the first candidate, Mr. Castellano, they might not have heard you very well, so let's make sure you have
Testing,
it
testing?
up.
No?
I don't think is his thing not working, you know?
What's working?
Testing?
Pass it back and forth.
Yeah, you can pass the other one back. Okay.
Testing? Testing?
Okay. Actually, I'm going to ask the first question, and because we're going to be rotating, Mr. Ring will be first. The first question is from the league, but actually there were 2 other questions in the stack that were almost the same question, but this one's easier to read, so I'm going to read this one. The legislature has a rule that at public meetings that are held in the courthouse once a month, that the public may speak at the end of the meeting and even ask questions, but the legislators will not engage you at the meeting. If you have a question, someone from the body must answer your question by mail. If elected, would you consider voting to change this rule to allow some exchange between the legislators and the residents at the actual meetings?
That's a good question, and it's actually something that bothered me as somebody who's not used to government. This is, like I said, my first time running. So absolutely, 100%, I will work to change that rule, and if I fail, I will respond to constituents that ask questions during the meetings, because it's not fair that the one televised meeting that the legislature holds is not open for response and questioning. If somebody asks a question to me, they're my boss. Like I said, I'm going to answer them. It's unfair that they have to talk and only speak about what's on the agenda. People can't just throw away what they're doing on a Tuesday night because they know that's the one time that that agenda item is going to be up. So we need to make sure that we're earning the money that we're getting paid. If I'm elected, and if I'm elected as chairman, I'll be making over $50,000. I think I could afford to stick around for an extra 10 minutes or 20 minutes if that's what it takes to answer all the questions asked of all of the constituents that come to ask them. I understand that there's a fear that it can drag on, but I know that Kent had a similar rule, and they changed the rule. And in, I don't want to give a time period, but 5 or 6 years, they had maybe 1 or 2 people that took advantage. If you treat people with respect, you'll be respected. And it's disrespectful to not let people ask questions and get responses from their elected officials. We're in this because we're here to help people. And I think one great way is to actually answer questions that are being asked of us.
Okay, thank you. Please, I know a tendency is you want to applaud, but let's keep moving. Mr. Castellano, the same question about public comment.
Thank you. Certainly I can answer the question. We've had this rule for a number of years. And the reason why we have the rule is we have committee meetings that take place all month long. Any agenda item could be heard at multiple committee meetings. Any fiscal item will be held at least 2 committee meetings. And the public has many opportunities, and I always encourage the public at all committee meetings to show up, speak, tell us what you think. My email address, my personal email address, my cell phone number is on our website. You can call me at any time. I speak to all constituents at any time of the day. I get calls all day long. And I think we answer all their questions. What happens at the last event, at the fall, the debate is now in the hands of the legislatures, and we certainly go back and forth a number of times over the course of the month. And At that meeting, it's time to make a decision. We certainly have public comment after, and we hear those public comments, and I certainly stay after. If anybody would ask me any questions, I'd be happy to answer and look into it. And I think we do a great job at that. There's no reason to think, that having, we're open and transparent. Please feel free to call me, and my colleagues, we're all there for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question, Mr. Castellano will address first. And it has to do with business development. There's been a lot of discussions and meetings regarding business development in Carmel. Please give specifics about what types of business you would support coming into the community, actually anywhere in the area. There's something, please do not discuss NE interstate logistics. I don't know what that means, but anyway, so business development. Mr. Castellano?
Well, of course, we're always for smart growth in Putnam County. We want to make sure businesses come and are able to do business in Putnam, and always willing to help any way we can. Certainly, these are more town issues, planning board, zoning board, Chamber of Commerce. These are the people that drive that. I'd love to see businesses come to Putnam County. We try our best at the legislature in any ways we can to help ease the process. Not really the responsibility of the legislature, but I always try to work with the local. I represent 3 municipalities within my district: the Village of Brewster, the Town of Southeast, Town of Carmel. I'm always there to help any chance I get. I always speak to local officials, trying to help any way Putnam County can help proceed. Always happy for some smart growth and some good businesses that can come to Putnam County. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rain? Business development in the county.
So what's a specific kind of business that I would support? Any that brings the jobs and money to our community. I think one problem that we have here in Putnam is that our sales tax is higher than any of the surrounding counties. It's 1% less, it's 1% higher than Westchester. It's about 2% higher than Connecticut, who doesn't change by local municipality. That means that if I were to go shopping and I went shopping in Putnam, I'd have to pay 1% more for what I'm buying than if I went shopping in Westchester. That means that merchants would have to charge 1% more to make the same profit as that same merchant would have to make in Westchester. And they would get no additional profit from that. So we need to work to make it fair for our businesses and our consumers that they can make as much money as those in neighboring counties. Now, specifically, I don't care what the company is. I want a company that brings jobs, even though we have a very low unemployment rate. More jobs is better. And I want something that can maybe help people not have to commute to the city. I want money to come in, and I know that the question asked not to mention Northeast Logistics, and that is out of our jurisdiction. But I'd rather not bring in business that brings in 250 one-way, 500 round-trip Mack truck trips every day.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to have a rebuttal.
Oh, all right, you can use your rebuttal.
I'll put that over there, I guess. The 1% sales tax issue that always comes up, we've discussed it over and over again for the last 6 years. When I first came in to Putnam County on the legislature, it was brought up. I told people who asked me to remove it, and then I would look into it and see what the options would be. That 1% sales tax represents about $15 million. We have a $160 million budget, 70% of which is unfunded state tax mandates, which is $110,000. Leaving us $50,000. If we cut $15 million on that 1% sales tax, we would have to have really deep cuts into our system, and it's just not possible. We've looked at it, we've thought about it, we've tried to remove it, but at the end of the day, it's a smart way to conduct business where we're not hurting the Putnam County residents, the taxpayers that own homes, that we'd have to increase the taxes on them to cover it. And quite honestly, most of New York State is using this 1% sales tax now, and I'm pretty sure Westchester is going to use it in the near future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next question. Oh, yeah, I guess you can have a rebuttal also.
Just because something's difficult doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. Just because it's harder to raise revenue without sales tax doesn't mean we should investigate how to do it. There are 7 different counties across New York that have investment fees when people move in, either by the purchaser or by the seller. That would raise far more than the 1%. I'm not even suggesting that we reduce sales tax by the full 1%, but 0.5% would be nice. We can look into more non-tax revenue or cut spending. So for example, we have these beautiful purple Putnam County buses. Well, if we slap some advertising on those buses, that way that people can choose to put money into the county, we can raise revenue without increasing anybody's taxes, sales tax, property tax, or otherwise. If we looked to cut spending, for example, if the salary of the legislators went back to what they were pre-2017 or even farther, I would like to reduce the raise that they gave themselves. Over 3 years, if we reduce it $10,000, we can save $270,000 over one term. That's over $250,000 so that your elected officials, part-time politicians, don't get paid more than the per capita amount for people in Putnam County.
Thank you. This next question, it's hard to say. We went back and forth a couple times. I can't remember who went first that time.
Joe did.
Okay. Then it will be Mr. Wren. The question is, what do you see as your role as legislator versus the policies of the county executive? So how do you work with the county executive?
So it's, well, I'll answer the first question. There's kind of two questions. I don't think my
Okay.
job is to work with the executive. It's to be a check on the executive. Legislative bodies, as far back as the Greek Senate, are there to check an executive. They're there to check the emperor. And I would love to check an emperor. I don't want to act as a rubber stamp. That's not any legislator's job. It's not about party affiliation. It's about a separation of powers. If Maureen Fleming wins the executive in Putnam County, my stance will not change. My job as legislator for District 7 will be to check Maureen's power. The job of everybody in every district is to check the legislature. Yes, of course we have to work with them and establish things, but we should not act as a rubber stamp. We should not have the case where in 2018, all but 3 resolutions voted on in the legislature were unanimous. Yes, agreeing is good, but to just get past something knowing that it will pass through, that is not good. That doesn't create debate. That doesn't make things better. So my job as the legislature, regardless of what the executive is to make sure that they do not abuse their power, that they don't create jobs for people they know, that they don't spend on X, Y, or Z. It's to check and make sure that we are an independent voice.
Thank you. Mr. Castellano, your role as a legislator vis-a-vis the county executive?
Absolutely. The role of the legislature is to check the finances of the county. I am the chairman of the Audit and Administration Committee. I understand, we don't have an emperor, we have a county executive, and I think she's doing a fantastic job. We work with her, we have discussions, we have disagreements. It goes on and on and on. All month long, it goes back and forth. We have a fantastic situation here in Putnam County. Our bond rating is a AA2 with Moody's. They're telling us we're doing a great job. We're doing the right things, and we're working. There's many discussions. A lot of the stuff that comes in front of the legislature that you want to speak about that is just unanimous is because it's simply paying bills. And you'll see a lot of those. But at the same time, we have a lot of discussions going back and forth. We have a lot of disagreements. And at the end of the day, I think we're doing the right thing for the people of Putnam County. Thank you.
The last question has to do with infrastructure. And so I believe Mr. Castellano will go first, and this will be the last of your questions. And then after this, we will have your closing statement. So this question is, what steps will you take to improve infrastructure in our region? Meaning roads or any other thing that comes to mind.
Thank you for the question. Hope you can hear me. We have a great highway superintendent, Fred Penna, who's doing fantastic work. We work with the state, Kevin Byrne, our state assemblyman, the state senator Murphy, and the others as well. We're rebuilding Putnam County, Route 6, Turk Hill Road in District 7. The Turk Hill Road Bridge got replaced. We're working with Metro North to fix the Prospect Avenue Bridge. Infrastructure is huge because, unfortunately, where we live, the roads are older and need more repair, and we do it. We've had some rough winters recently, and we continue to work with the state and the feds. We received money to replace the Morningthorpe Bridge. We're going to turn it into a pedestrian walkway next year, which will benefit the village of Brewster. We got that money from the federal government. We reach out to all portions of the government to try to help us rebuild Putnam County. The infrastructure is what it is. I mean, drive down to New York City, you can see the potholes and everywhere. It's a constant battle to try to stay on top of it. I think we're doing a great job, and we're moving forward, continuing to rebuild everything. There's a couple other intersections that I want to work on in the near future, in the Drewville Bridge in Carmel, and the Stoley Avenue intersection over there is going to be replaced soon. We have the Fair Street in Carmel that we're working on. We're doing good things in Putnam County.
Thank you. Mr. Ring?
The problem with infrastructure is that it's expensive. It's hard. And a lot of times things that don't get done because people are worried about being labeled as big spenders. They're worried about the next time they run for election that they're going to be hit, that they spent a lot of money. But that's what infrastructure is. It's spending now, investing in your future. I have a long future here in Putnam, elected official or not. I think that we need to lead by example as a county or as a government. And so we need to invest in Tilly's solar field. We need that solar field to be put in so that we can reduce costs. Everything is about money with infrastructure. And as I mentioned, one great way to save more money is to give back, so to not take. And as a legislature, like I said, not only will I vote to reduce the salary, I will donate the difference between what I think our salary should be and what it currently is. So it's right now, the base is just over $40,000. I think it should be 30, and I will donate $10,000 to the towns I represent to show them where the money should be used. Yeah, but infrastructure is good for everybody. The more we put into it, the better your life is. The job of a government is to raise the quality of life. If our roads are more drivable, that's great. If our bridges are walkable and our bridges are maintained, that's great. So what we need to establish a good infrastructure is to save as much money so that we can use it on the infrastructure, because that impacts everybody across the board.
Okay, thank you. We've now come to the closing statements. Mr. Ring will go first. Each of you has 1 minute to sum up your position. Mr. Ring?
I'm excited for this election. I did not expect this when my wife was 8 months pregnant, that we were going to get a call and say, hey, do you want to run for the county legislature? I asked her, she said, sure. And now we have a 3-month-old and a 2.5-year-old, and I'm still doing it. I'm out every night petitioning. I got over 500 signatures. I knocked on doors that I never would have seen. I've seen views from streets that I never would have seen on Eleanor Drive in Maypac that I never knew existed. When I am in the legislature, I have to, like I said, lead by example. One of the biggest problems with our country, not our county, but our country, is the anger that both sides have towards each other. I don't have the option to be angry if I win. When I win, I have to work with people who are not Democrats, and that's great. I didn't used to be a Democrat, and I work for myself great. We need to prioritize the people, and we need to make sure that everybody knows where their money goes. In the budget address, you don't see the personnel file, you see everything else, and I'm telling you, that's where the most cuts can come from. November 6th, vote for Scott Ring.
Thank you. Mr. Castellano?
Thank you. In closing, I would like, sorry, turn this back on. In closing, I'd like to again thank the League of Women Voters for making this evening possible. I'm a very proud public servant. I've continued to work for the people of Putnam County. In my day job, as some of you might know, I work in Westchester County. I work for a Democrat. He hired me most recently. So I work with everybody. I'm bipartisan. I don't think anybody knows in Westchester what political affiliation I have. I try to do the right thing for people, period. I enjoy what I do. I think I do a great job. I go out there, I collect signatures, I try to help people I believe that need to be here and working. The projects I'd like to complete over the next few years, of course, are going to be the Morningthorpe Pedestrian Bridge, the Sodom-Drewville Road bridges, the Stoley Avenue and Drewville intersection, and continue to work on the bike path moving into Connecticut. I think we're doing great things in Putnam County, and again, I look forward to the challenges of the future, and I hope you consider me on Election Day. Thank you.
Thank you. The next candidates we'll be hearing from will be Mary Ellen Odell and Maureen Fleming for the position of Putnam County Executive. we have the coin toss? Do we know who's going first? Mary Ellen. Let me see Mary Ellen you go.
Can you just show her how to use the mic? Okay, it can't be on mute. It's on. It has to be on.
Okay. We might bump you into the others.
Are you filming?
Right? And is your opponent here?
I'm sure he's here. I haven't seen him yet.
Oh, you haven't seen him?
Sure, please put this down if you don't mind.
What's that?
I don't think people want me to advertise for Powerade.
Oh, he's on his way upstairs, okay. Vidal, yeah. Yeah.
Not just
Apparently he went upstairs for a minute. All right.
Just do me a favor, just
So when you're not speaking, turn it to off. When you are speaking, turn it to on.
Right.
And is there just like a stop or is there a warning or? Got it.
All right, I want to thank the gentlemen for moving up their part of the program. I really appreciate you being a little flexible. They've done a little coin toss here, and Mr. Byrne will be going first, and Mr. Vashi, am I pronouncing the names right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
Byrne.
Byrne. Yes.
Okay.
That's good. That was a good one.
All right. So we'll begin with your opening statements, which can be 2 minutes. Keep an eye on the timers. And Mr. Byrne will go first. Do you know how to use those?
Does that sound, everybody hear me? Is that working?
You have to, is yours on? You have to turn yours off to prevent that.
Soft.
Okay, great.
All right, now we're starting again. Can everybody hear me? Yes. All right, my name is Kevin Byrne. I've had the honor and privilege of serving as...
No. Just have to be back there.
Third try. Everybody hear me? How about now? Yes. Great, thank you. That was a nice little exercise. So I want to thank everybody for coming out here. It's great. I've had the honor of serving as a state assemblyman for New York's 94th Assembly District, serving the people of northern Westchester and Putnam County for the last nearly 2 years. We've gotten a lot of things done, but a lot more work to do. And it has truly been a privilege. Even here in Putnam County, we're right in the May Impact Public Library. I want to thank them for hosting. We were able to do a lot of good work for our libraries during my first term in the Assembly. Something I'm very proud of. But 2 years ago, when I first decided to run for this office, it was because we were losing a generation of New Yorkers. New York State has the highest total tax burden of any state in the nation. We're also one of the most indebted and least business-friendly states in the nation. So when I went to Albany, I made a pledge that I was going to be a tax fighter through and through to make sure I can make sure you could afford to stay in New York, and so could your families and your loved ones and your friends. Because when I grew up in Putnam County and went to Carmel High School, 10 years later, I had a high school reunion, and I noticed a lot of my high school former classmates have moved away, left the state of New York. Everything okay? Okay, sorry. So we've gotten a lot done. I vote against every single tax increase that's been proposed in the legislature. We've fought against New York City's overreaching big government and their special interests, but we don't do that by not working well with people across party lines. I've worked effectively with Democrats, Republicans, you name it. And that's how we've been able to pass so much meaningful legislation. We've expanded cancer coverage for volunteer firefighters. We've made sure that we've introduced legislation to reduce and lower your property taxes. And we've worked on ways we could actually make healthcare more affordable for people who need it here in New York State. And I'll just close with one final thing here too, and I do want to welcome Vidat Gashi to this race. I didn't get to formally welcome to the race. We've been seeing each other a little bit at events, and this is democracy. People need to get the word out. We need to listen. I think politicians talk too much. We have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. We should be listening more than we're talking. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hold the applause to the end, okay? Mr. Gashi.
I'm more glad he went first since he could work out the technical difficulties first. Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for inviting me here. Thank you to the crowd and for participating, and thank you to everybody for being a part of it. My name isn't common, but my story is. We're immigrants. We came here. She came here with me. She's my daughter. We're immigrants. We moved first to the Bronx. My parents started a small business, and when that small business was successful, they used that money to buy a home in Yorktown, where I moved when I was 11 years old. Since that time, I went to Lakeland High School, as did the rest of my family. Went to college and law school, and during that time I had the privilege of interning for two of my mentors, my heroes, who ended up being mentors. Congressman Lee Hamilton of the House International Relations Committee and Judge Sonia Sotomayor, before she went to the Supreme Court. Yeah, and I used the lessons that I learned there to go into my first job, which was eventually to get into Kosovo, where I was born, to help write laws because they had just separated from Serbia. I helped write laws there. I helped build the legal infrastructure. I'm proud of the work I did. But when I decided to start a family, I moved back to Yorktown, where I grew up. And I decided to raise my family in that same area. I have two kids, one of which you've met already. At the schools, I'm a homeowner, moved into the home that my parents had lived in. And I'm a small business owner. My office is in Yorktown, and I'm a lawyer. I'm running because, frankly, I was disappointed with the state and local tax deduction that the federal government passed, and the state fought against. I wanted to be on the side of the fight against that. I wanted common sense gun laws, work and fight for the environment and women's rights, and a lot of these issues, which I don't think we've had yet. We've had 100 years. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, you're going to have a chance to get to some of those other points in the question.
I'll do my best. Thank you.
All right. So you will go, Mr. Gashi will go first in the question and answer time, and it will rotate back and forth. Who goes first? And you have 1.5 minutes to answer the question. And if you really want to say something about what your candidate said, you can hold up your rebuttal card and speak for another minute. This question is about gerrymandering. As part of the New York State Legislature, Assembly, excuse me, what will you do to help improve the way our political boundaries are drawn? Okay, and you will go first.
Sure.
1.5.
Well, I think as part of the majority, if elected, and I would be, my goal would be to have a district representative of the area and the people, and I think it's a bigger problem in the state Senate district. You see that the overlapping one goes kind of, to me, looks like a reindeer. People disagree. But I actually like the way the district is cut insofar as it's not completely in Westchester, not completely in Putnam. When I grew up in Lakeland, we would freely go back and forth between Mayapack, less so into Patterson, but it's still a part of the district. I like diversity in our district, and I think our current district represents that.
Okay, thank you. And same question, gerrymandering.
Sure. Everybody hear me again? Great, thank you. So questions about gerrymandering. I remember 2 years ago I ran and someone said, you know, this district has been gerrymandered to help a Republican stay in the Assembly. Ridiculous, actually, because the Democrats have controlled the Assembly since almost the 1970s. And this district is actually a result of every other district around us being gerrymandered to protect majority members who happen to be in the Democratic Party. I think the best way we can do this, the legislature has said they passed independent redistricting before I was elected. I think that's a bunch of malarkey. It's not true, because the independent redistricting, if you will, has to be approved by the legislature. If you really want independent redistricting, it needs to be based on geography and population. That's the best way to do it. I mean, even if you look at the federal level, I mean, I don't think this district is as bad because you have at least 6 towns that are close together. But you look at my colleague, who I share Putnam in Westchester County with, Sandra Galo, hers comes up all the way from Ossining all the way up over to Phillipstown and Kent. And I have a colleague, Brian Miller, who represents parts of Orchard County. He covers 9 counties. It looks like a giant serpent. It's ridiculous. For him to get from one point of his district to the other takes 4 hours. That's as long as it takes to get from the congressional district from one point to the other. And the congressional district that represents most of this district, not all of it, goes from Connecticut to Pennsylvania. So we absolutely need real independent redistricting. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is, what will you do to support more affordable health care and any health care bill which may be brought up before the New York State legislature? And you will go first, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. I mentioned this in my opening remarks. I happen to have a Master's of Public Administration concentrating in healthcare administration. I worked for a private medical group. I worked for one of the nation's largest health organizations, the American Heart Association, and I volunteered and worked as an EMT for many years. This is something I'm passionate about. My wife is even a physician assistant. And I know there's proposals that people talk about, which would be basically an Albany takeover of our healthcare, prohibiting the sale of private health insurance, would increase payroll taxes, increase income taxes. That's the type of legislation that isn't going to give you more choice and more options. And quite frankly, I think it's dangerous because it could actually lead to rationing your healthcare choices. What we can do is help, by starters, look at the biggest portion of our state budget, which is the Medicaid program, and fix it so we make it work better and more efficiently for its beneficiaries and the taxpayers. We have a bill that would do this. We would help take over a portion of the Medicaid costs that go to counties, which would be a great source for mandate relief. It would also create a commission to review all the non-federally mandated benefits of the Medicaid program. If you did that, you could actually look at tiering people off the Medicaid program so they don't just have a net loss of take-home pay when they're done. It actually gets them an incentive to work. That helps them. We can work with our partners in the federal government. I think we should eliminate or expand the use of health savings accounts. They should allow people to purchase health insurance across state lines. There's a lot of things we can do, and we should also support our federally qualified health centers. Those are organizations that have a lot of local control, a lot of and help folks who need that health care the most. Thank you very much.
Mr. Gashi, same question. Health care.
I think this is actually one of the most important things we deal with. And about a year ago, if I'm correct, I was proud to attend a League of Women Voters Forum here on healthcare and the single-payer plan. And I understand that there's one that's passed the Assembly a number of times. It's an important one for me because, frankly, I've been swayed by the objective third-party analysis that shows that we would be saving billions of dollars by adopting it. Not to mention the benefits that would accrue to business owners who would be saved from that extra expense. With that said, I'm not sure that the current bill is a perfect iteration of it, but I think, frankly, we're not getting at it the way we're attacking it now. My family, I feel like now we're privileged enough to have insurance. It's getting more expensive every year and our coverage is less. But when I was talking about moving up here when I was the age of 11, I like to tell a story about at that time, it's a story about how the middle class, I think, gets hurt more. My sister fell and broke both her ankles. She had health costs that accrued with it. She got $87,000 in bills from that event. They ended up putting a lien in our house at that time because of these health care bills. I think these are the sort of stories that happen if we are if we let the current situation continue as it is, start eroding at the protections we've gotten over Obamacare, et cetera. Thank you.
All right.
You got 1 minute?
First use of a rebuttal.
All right, thank you. I think it's important for people to actually understand what the single-payer health care coverage bill would do, the New York Health Act. And I'm not clear if my opponent just said if he was going to vote for it or not. It seemed it was actually kind of unclear because he said there was maybe some issues. However, it's got to be very, very clear what this would do. The Medicaid dollars that we get from the federal government and state government would be rolled into this program. The Medicare dollars, which are for our seniors. Seniors have been paying into this program for years. Guess what, folks? It would be rolled into this program. It would prohibit the cost of the sale of private health insurance in the state of New York, putting over 100,000 people out of a job. You want to see a recession? Watch that bill happen. Even the governor, Governor Cuomo, I'm a Republican, he's a Democrat. In the gubernatorial debate, he said we couldn't sustain this plan. He said it would cost over $200 billion. Okay, that's a low conservative estimate. It's coming from him. It's going to cost upwards of $250, $400 billion. Our state budget is massive. You want to know how much it is? $168 billion. That's what this program would do. If you want to talk about with the highest total tax burden state in the nation, do this. It's going to blow it out of the water.
Thank you. All right. The next question has to do with judicial our laws and criminal justice system. The question is, thousands of people cannot afford bail and spend long periods of time in jail, even though they committed no violent crime and are not a flight risk. Wealthy people spend no time in jail while awaiting trial because they can afford bail. Would you favor a law to correct that problem, and any thoughts about what that law should do? So I believe Ms. Byrne goes.
I rebut it, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's right, it was rebuttal. Okay, so it's Mr. Gashi.
Thank you. Bail reform is extremely important in my mind. It's another one of those areas where we have a system that doesn't necessarily serve the problem it's trying to fix. Anytime, I think the criminal justice system should be focused on punishing and finding justice through the system. Money shouldn't play a role in that, and for that reason, I'd be for a reform of it that would take money out of the equation.
Okay, thank you. Ron?
Thank you. I'm not an attorney, but I know enough that when an issue comes to your desk and you're not an expert in it, you speak to the experts. I've spoken to civil rights advocates, people in the district attorney's office, folks who are defense attorneys and prosecutors, and judges and retired judges. And I can tell you, it's important to have bail because you want to make sure that people, after they're arrested and are being tried, that they stay and they're not a flight risk. But it's also important to have options. And the way our state actually performs bail now, there are a lot of options. There are some proposals that would require cashless bail, some things that, quite frankly, everyone that I know in the legal community has expressed concerns about. That's why I've opposed different versions of it in the Assembly. If there is another type that I can review, I'm happy to look at it. But again, options are key, but you can't just remove bail because there are people who are convicted or are being tried for crimes, and you need to make sure that they're held accountable, they don't become a flight risk. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a little lighter question now. Ms. Byrne will go first. What is your position on the legalization of recreational cannabis in New York State? I'll withhold the name.
So anyone that knows the history of this district, right? Traditionally, I have always, growing up, I didn't think we needed medicinal marijuana. I didn't think we needed recreational marijuana. I thought, hey, it's the law, it's the law. And my predecessor, and for those of you who know this story, actually had a run-in with the use of cannabis. And it actually opened me up a little bit to learn more about how other states have worked on this issue, and particularly the healthcare community. That's why, as a member of the Health Committee, and that's a very important committee to sit on in the State Assembly, some of those bills passed by 1 or 2 votes. It doesn't even matter what party you're with, Republican or Democrat. I have voted for every single medicinal marijuana bill that has come before the New York State legislature, including allowing the use of medicinal marijuana for veterans who are suffering from post-traumatic stress. There's a lot of uses from cannabis for CBD oils and other things to help people suffering from all different types of disabilities. And one thing that I want to continue to fight for as your representative is to empower people of all abilities, make sure that they feel welcome. Recreational marijuana, that's a step too far for me. I do see other states going perhaps that route, and I'm sure we can learn from them. But there are a lot of, besides just the decision itself, there's a lot of costs that associate with it. If you're going to legalize recreational marijuana, think of it all the cost of law enforcement. Every single canine dog that you have in New York State that's trained to detect cannabis, guess what? They're going to have to be retired. That's going to be a large cost to local governments and to the local property taxpayers.
Thank you. Mr. Gashi, same question.
I'm not going to start with the dogs. I agree with medical marijuana, and I usually start this question by saying, frankly, among my close friends anyway, I'm the only one that's never smoked marijuana. So I don't speak to it from an educated point of view. I will say that I'm swayed by the other states and even Canada now that's legalized it recreationally. I'm also swayed by the numbers that show the usage between white people and persons of color are roughly equal, but the incarceration rates are vastly more for the people of color. I will say on the other side of that though, legalization of recreational marijuana shouldn't mean a complete free-for-all of marijuana. There should be effective regulation. There should be limited as we would anything else. And frankly, underage people and people driving under the influence, these would all be things that would concern me. Thank you.
Mr. Gashi will go first on this question. Will you support all legislation to remove all guns, handguns and long guns, from convicted domestic abusers?
This is a good one for me because it's one that I've harped on. And one that I've seen a letter to the editor recently that I think misstates the issue. There was a bill A525 that said, are we removing, can we remove guns from the hands of convicted domestic abusers? That was passed unanimously. Everybody voted for that, including my opponent. There was one subsequent to that that hoped to close a loophole for long guns. And long guns are rifles, shotguns, even an AR-15. And that that bill was persuasive to me for a couple different reasons. It showed that it included language that said, if you're abusing your victim, you have 5 times, and you have access to a gun, you're 5 times more likely to kill them. And also, 9 out of the last 10 mass shootings were perpetrated by people who have a history of domestic violence. I am surprised and disappointed that he voted against this one with the utmost respect. I understand that sometimes there was an argument that I don't know, people should have access to these guns and there's a right to it. For me, if you're a convicted domestic abuser, you shouldn't. And I say that as a gun owner. And I don't think guns should be removed from everybody's hands. But if you're a convicted domestic abuser, that's common sense to me. I don't think you should have a gun. Thank you.
Okay.
So everything my opponent just said was wildly inaccurate. Okay, that bill that we passed was not unanimous. I actually had to break from my own party to vote yes in favor of it. I voted yes in favor of the Domestic Violence Escalation Prevention Act, not once, but twice. Twice I voted against it. Now, there is a third bill which Mr. Gashi is neglecting to inform you of. The first one that I voted in favor of would do precisely what he said, but which is also already available through order of protections at the federal level. But if you want to talk about the bill that Mr. Gashi is alluding to, it was a bill that was rammed through the legislature's throats at 1 o'clock in the morning between budget bills tied to the governor's messages of necessity, shutting out the public in the middle of the night. And it expanded the definition to include violations. You know, that concerned a lot of people that it was going to include violations, like things like attempted harassment or attempted trespass. But the reality is, I have taken a stand on that. I voted yes, not once, but twice. I volunteered as a firefighter EMT, cared for patients and victims of domestic violence in the women's shelter. I'm wearing a purple tie today because I came from a candlelight vigil over in Hamlin and Carmel for victims of domestic violence. This is something that, it's ridiculous that my opponent continues to say this. I got nothing else to say other than it really is just wildly inaccurate and it seems to be purposely misleading. Thank you.
Are you using a rebuttal card?
I waived it, and I'm so glad we have those right now. There's a lot to pack here and unpack, and I think I'll start with inaccurate or inaccurate, his point of view or mine. We have a great tool at our disposal. It's called Google. Google it. We could see that on A525 he voted for, not the first iteration, apparently he voted against that one. but everyone voted, that was a unanimous vote. That was not a spread vote between parties. Google it. The second one that did pass, I don't know if he's making a procedural argument, the fact that it was rammed through during the middle of the night. I'm sorry that you're upset with it. I still hold that what that law provided was convicted domestic abusers, and frankly, secondarily, yes, you're upset that it might include some harassment and some convictions for certain types of domestic violence convictions, but I wouldn't parse between domestic violence convictions. Sorry, thank you.
Second use of a rebuttal card.
Thank you. So let's just be clear here. You can Google it, but you can also look it right here. I brought it. This is the vote, right here. You can look at it.
Which vote is that?
This is Bill 5025, and we voted on it twice. And the first bill, no. There was about 8 or 10 people that voted no on it, and you can look at it right here.
Thanks.
But that I've already been very clear on this issue, and my record is very clear on this issue. What we've talked about is protecting those who are victims of domestic violence. My conference actually set up a task force last year. We traveled the state of New York listening to people, okay, about this very issue. But if you want to accept ramming through legislation at 1 o'clock in the morning without the legislature even reading it, that's how we got things like the so-called SAFE Act. That's how you got things like the Mario Cuomo Bridge. As silly as people might think that is, it upset a lot of people. You need to make sure the legislature can make informed, intelligent decisions. Ramming through legislation at 1 o'clock in the morning while the rest of the state is fast asleep, there is only one reason they're doing that, because they don't want you to know what's in it. And I'm gonna vote no. I vote no every single time that happens. Thank you.
Second rebuttal, is that what's coming up?
That's like a fourth.
I believe so. So, great interest in gun control.
This is an interesting one, and frankly, I'm glad that he brought this, because it shows, and I'm looking here, correct me if I'm wrong, right here it says Byrne voted no.
No, that's not the vote on the bill.
That's the first one.
Nope.
Now,
Nope.
he says no.
Look at the title.
Now, this is, and then the eventual bill, we look at it, and it shows the assembly vote, and we'll excuse me here because I'm looking, 134 to 1. So if it wasn't unanimous, it was close enough to it. Listen, there are issues where you want to look at laws. There are issues, there's bills where there's a whole bunch of things baked in. There's pork. This isn't one of those. This was a singular bill that dealt with gun control for convicted domestic abusers. That's it. If it took you a long time to read that, I don't know why it should. That's an open and shut case. You might have been dealing with a lot of things. I think this is an important one that should have been dealt with. And frankly, even if it was the middle of the night, this is what you should be doing. This is what we should be doing. Thank you.
This is an issue the room is very concerned with, so that's great, that's great. All right, I lost track of who went first officially that time. Do either of you remember? Since we ended with Mr. Gashi, we'll start with Mr. Gashi on this one. This is a question from the league, and it's a sort of a procedural one. New York State has an antiquated voting system, one of the worst in the nation. This may be a significant reason why we also have one of the lowest voting records in the nation. In light of this, would you be in favor, this has to do with, being able to vote only that one day, no early voting and all that sort of thing. In light of this, would you be in favor of using the automatic voting system? It automatically updates your information each time you use a government facility, such as the DMV. And would you share your thoughts on other ways we can improve our voting system, which would have to do with the ease of being able to register and ease and access to actual voting? So, Mr. Gashi first.
Yeah, this is another easy one. The answer to all of that is yes. I come from a community, I'm Albanian. There are a lot of Albanian Americans in this district. One of my great disappointments is many of them aren't registered to vote. And I think part of the reason is, while it is a right, they create steps to vote. Now, I am very much in favor of the integrity of the vote, but we maintain the integrity of information when, for example, we apply for driver's licenses and the like. I think we should be, and for that reason, I'm in favor of an automatic registration when somebody gets a driver's license. I'm also in favor of early voting, anything that makes it easier for someone to vote, because frankly, not everybody has the luxury of being able to take a day off to vote, especially if it's a big vote where there's a lot of people there. My goal isn't to promote one party or another. My goal would be to make sure that everybody has a chance to exercise their right, and frankly, I don't think we do right now. Thank you.
Okay, this is a pretty simple answer for me. I do not support early voting. I do not support an automatic voter registration through the DMV, because that is an individual's choice if they want to register to vote or not. Okay, people have various different reasons. But I do support, and my record backs this up, because I think talk is cheap in politics. It's easy to talk. If you have a record, you can point to it. I voted in favor of a constitutional amendment that would allow no excuse absentee balloting. All right? Because right now, if you want to vote absentee, you have to prove that you're going to be outside of the county. Pretty easy for us in Putnam County. We live in a small county. But for Westchester, that represents almost 1 million people, you know, you could be working the overnight shift in Yonkers and you never get a chance to go home. You technically can't vote absentee ballot. You have to show up to the polls and vote. So that's the best way to increase access to the ballot box. I do want to circle back to one other thing. This is not this is a technical vote saying appeal the chair. The vote was 132 to 8, not 1, and 134 to 1. So this is basic research, and if you can't read a simple printout from the New York State Assembly website, I don't know what to tell you. But this isn't just about domestic violence. The reality is, I'm proud to be a supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm endorsed by the New York State Rifle Pistol Association. I got an A- rating. You want to know I got a minus? Because of that vote. That's why I got an A- rating. My opponent got an F. That means you are the #1 enemy of any law-abiding gun owner. I am going to stand up for all our rights, including our Second Amendment rights. Thank you.
All right, let's quiet down. I think one thing we can take from this is that both of the candidates have stated that they are in favor of restricting access to guns by domestic abusers, which is what the original question was.
Hard disagree.
And now, which is, a very serious issue. All right. Our last question before the closing statements will be a question about taxes. We actually have two of them that are very close, so I'm going to try to blur them together. One is that a senior citizen is saying his home real estate and school taxes keep going up, income taxes are up. How can you prevent me from leaving New York, where I've lived my entire life because our state taxes are so high? And how can you assure me that, this is another question, that the money that our taxes are sent to Albany, that money comes back to the district in terms of aid and services and doesn't all go down to New York City or to Buffalo or someplace else? All right? So I believe that Mr. Byrne goes first.
Thank you. So for anyone that pays property taxes, I know I do, about 70% of your property tax bill is your school taxes. My opponent has tried to make a point of saying that because I voted against an omnibus budget bill that included a charitable deduction for the salt, to replace the salt deduction for school taxes, that I somehow didn't fight to lower taxes. It's really crazy. The IRS warned the state of New York and all the local municipalities that they were not going to make it permissible. They've said since then it's not permissible, and no municipality in the 94th Assembly District has benefited from that law, and it passed. But he likes to make a point of that. I have introduced and co-sponsored legislation to directly lower property taxes. I talked about that Medicaid bill, with the state taking over that cost and really looking at it. Again, the state comptroller, Tom DiNapoli, is a Democrat. He's even said there's nearly $2 billion in fraud, waste, fraud, and abuse. We can absolutely run that program better, maintaining services for those with disabilities, but for those who are there receiving the health care because they're low income, make it better and more affordable for them. I also have legislation that the governor likes to talk about shared services. I can tell you right now, our county executive, our county legislator, and municipalities have been doing shared services for years. It's not new, but it was disingenuous for the governor to talk about shared services and leave the school districts out of it. So I have a bill to make sure that if you're going to have a shared services initiative, you include school districts. You don't know what's out there unless you're sitting at the table. By doing that, you can significantly reduce your property tax bill, and ensuring that it comes back here. We've brought back record dollars for foundation aid for our schools, our libraries, and helping all folks who live here in the district.
Thank you. Gashi.
Well, I got to turn it on. Well, since it was brought up, I'll bring it up again then. State and local tax deduction was part of the bill. He voted against it. He actually got mad at me saying that as a Republican as regards to that bill, as a Republican, you would think he'd vote to lower our taxes, but he didn't. Got so mad that he brought me before the Westchester County Fair Campaigns Practices Committee. They analyzed that, and they said that he was wrong to bring up that charge.
Really?
Yep, they did decline to find it unfair. I think and that's because it will. Now, typically Republicans are states' rights, and this federal law is going to hurt a lot of the people that live here. If your taxes are more than $10,000, it could hurt you. I think it probably hurt me and my family, a lot of my constituents. If there is a fight between the federal government and my community here, I would side with my community rather than the federal government, and this law does that. Now, the IRS did say, because it's part of the federal government, that it declines, that it doesn't think this is applicable. That's why New York State is suing as part of a lawsuit, and frankly, there's 2 lawsuits going against. This is an active matter, an active contention. Nobody has taken advantage of this yet, and frankly, I think that's our fault. We should be taking advantage of it for our seniors, for the people that are just getting by, and for these people that have already the highest taxes and are scared about paying more. The other argument is about all these bills that he's passed. He's in the opposition. He has gotten none of them passed. I would be in the majority, and I would hope to do that, be able to be successful, be a forceful voice in getting them passed. Thank you.
We'll now have closing statements. And I believe Mr. Gashi will go first on the closing statements. Their remarks will be limited to 1 minute. Mr. Gashi.
Well, I'm going to start with thanking you all again. This is really a privilege, and I've told the story to some of the people here, but I love telling a story about how, as an immigrant, feel really excited and privileged to get to the point where I'm here and able to be a potential representative of you all. When my mom heard about my first vote at the Yorktown Democratic Committee, the endorsement, she cried, and it cried because I think it's a reflection of the American dream. Now, in this district, I think it's time we sent an independent voice to Albany, somebody who could work with both sides. It's been for 100 years, almost 100 years, since 1920, one-party rule. I think it's time that we send somebody else there. I got the Independence Party because I think I can move and work with the other side. My opponent was rated the #1 most conservative member of the Assembly, most often voting with the other side, and I think I'd like to be a different person. I think I can talk to Republicans and Democrats, and hopefully, if you give me the right and privilege to do that, I will do that. Thank you.
I think you're not obeying the rules. Please hold the applause down until the end, okay? Mr. Byrne.
Thank you. So just going back really quick, that's not true about the Westchester Fair Campaign Practice Committee. They actually said that there was an unfair ruling on you, but trying to somehow ridiculously tie my campaign filings to corruption because my treasurer was dealing with the death of her mother, which I find is ridiculous.
That was a different one. Google it again.
Google it again. You'll find that there was a neutral finding on the one you cited because they said the tax implications weren't clear. That is far from agreeing with you, Mr. Gashi. Come on. Now, as far as being effective in the New York State legislature, we have been one of the most effective assembly members in the entire state. I've passed more legislation than any freshman lawmaker, regardless of party. 8 of 10 bills that I have already passed, I introduced. 8 of them have already been signed into law by the governor. All right, we need someone that's going to be able to stand up for us. I am a proud conservative, and I'm a Republican because I believe in a limited government, lower taxes, and protecting every single one of our constitutional freedoms. It doesn't matter what age you are, what sex you are, what gender you are, what sexual orientation you are. Everyone benefits from a more affordable New York that serves you, and that's what I'm going to continue to do as your assemblyman. I ask for your vote. Thank you so much.
Have a applause for both candidates. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. about ready? I'm going to ask Ms. Fleming to proceed in just one moment. All right, we are now dealing with the position of county executive. Our two candidates are Mary Ellen Odell and Maureen Fleming. And Ms. Fleming will proceed first. She will be doing her opening statement, and then her opponent, Mary Ellen Odell. So Ms. Fleming, please start. You have 2 minutes.
Okay.
And you know that the timekeepers will hold up cards when it's about time for you to be.
Okay.
All right?
All right. Thank you to the league. Thank you to everybody who came out.
And you can't get too
Oh, I
close
can't
to
get too
this.
close, so should I just stay back here?
Yes.
Okay, can I start again? Okay. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. Thank you to everybody that came out this evening. I'm Maureen Fleming, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm running for county executive. I'm an attorney. I've been a certified teacher, and I chose to live in Putnam County. I moved up here with my family.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
we're going to have to start you over again. Yours is off?
Yes, ma'am.
Huh. You could try putting on your lapel.
All
Let's
right.
see if that works. Yeah,
Okay.
all right, let's try that.
Am I going like too close to this? Maybe?
No, I don't think this one does it.
All right, I'm going to start again.
Let's start again.
All right, I keep getting 20 seconds.
You over. Yeah.
I want to tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm running for county executive. I'm an attorney. I have been a certified teacher. I moved to this county with my husband of 31 years, Jim Olvetta, and my family because we wanted a better life. And we chose Putnam County for that better life. We chose it for its open space. We chose it for its nature, its beauty, because it's a safe community. We love it here. And I'm running for county executive because I want to stay here. And unfortunately, with our tax and spend and bond government as it is now, it's making it harder and harder for people to afford to live here. Seniors are being challenged to live here, young families, millennials. It's very difficult. Our tax rate goes up every single year in the county, and we're taking from our fund balance just to balance the budget. That's an unsustainable program. We need to start spending more wisely. We need to start looking at what we're spending our money on. We need to start actually being a government that runs services and is answerable to its people instead of having events and, and destination locations that don't actually benefit the general public of this county. We said in the budget presentation, it was said we've paid down $40 million worth of debt in the years between 2012 and 2017. And yet, the Putnam County Comprehensive Annual Financial Report shows that our long-term debt at the end of 2011 was $60.6 million, and our long-term debt at the end of 2017 was $60.5 million. That's not $40 million in my book. That's $132,000. I really like facts, and anything I say is going to be backed up on my website and on my Facebook page, so you can look at the actual documents. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary Ellen Odell. I am the county executive. I've been serving as a public servant in government since 2006. I was appointed to be a legislator, but prior to that, I spent the greater part of my life as a working mom and a community organizer. The town that I grew up in was lacking services for our children and our families, and I will say to you today, the main focus was because I grew up in a town that I realized I no longer knew anyone anymore. So I thought if I put a bunch of us together, we could create an organization where children and families could become friends. And 20 years later, friends have become families. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the work we've done for our veterans and honoring our veterans, enhancing the programs and the benefits that they receive today. And most importantly, I'm very proud of the senior services. Putnam County senior population is on the uptick. It's rising. They've paid their dues. They've paid their dues to society. They've paid their taxes. They're important for us as families. We need our grandparents to stay here. That's one of the reasons why we have invested so much into our senior centers, into the programs, to give them back what they've given all of us. Social and fiscal responsibilities are what you're going to hear tonight about my administration. Our fiscal responsibility, according to the Moody's report card, we're AA2. We did pay $40 million worth of debt down. We eliminated $17 million worth of short-term debt. We reduced our long-term debt by 15%. And we also eliminated our pension costs, which is responsible government, particularly those who are counting on those pensions. And that move saved the taxpayers $775,000. We do all that with the increased pressure and burden of unfunded mandates. The unfunded mandates, ladies and gentlemen, your tax dollars, every dollar 70 cents goes to Albany for programs that we're not responsible for except but to pay for and implement. Thank you.
For the questions, remember the response is 1.5 minutes. And Ms. O'Dell will go first. The first question is, for all the money we contribute to the gas tax, we still see far too many roads in poor condition. How do we ensure our tax dollars are invested in infrastructure?
We do a very good job in Putnam County roads. I believe we have 114 miles of roads in Putnam County. And we have bridges and culverts, and we have MS4 requirements. My administration actually was one of the impetus organizers for creating the bubble compliance for MS4, which is critical to our infrastructure. That's why some of our lakes are suffering from the blue-green algae, because our roads and infrastructure have been taking on too much salt and fertilizer and pesticides. And we're very focused and very cognizant of that. We count on a lot of our resources for our roads and our bridges to come from Albany funding. And the funding has just not been there from Albany. While we have seen increases in our mandates and increases in our responsibilities for programs, we've seen a decrease in the amount of funding that's given to us to make sure that our roads are safe. However, with the aggressive work and partnership of Senator Murphy and Assemblyman Byrne, we were able to accomplish getting a grant to pave Route 6, a very critical area in our town, in our county seat. And we're looking forward to the next few weeks continuing that paving project from the bike path at Willow Road right through the county seat to 301. You have to stay on Albany to get money for our roads. Our Commissioner of Highways, Mr. Fred Penna, and our team together in county government, our Commissioner of Planning, we're all working every day together to find every dollar we can to make sure that our roads are safe.
Can I hear the question again?
For all the money we contribute to the gas tax, we still see far too many roads in poor condition. How do we ensure our tax dollars are invested in infrastructure?
Well, one of the ways that I think we improve the roads in Putnam County through the money we get from the gas tax is by actually using the highway department employees for their function. We have diverted our highway department employees to do work at Tilly Foster Farm, at the Putnam County National Golf Course, and taken them off the important infrastructure job that they were hired to do. They're a very skilled group of people. They're a wonderful group of people, but we are not deploying them properly. And so who's paying for that? The residents that drive on the road. Sure, the people that go to Tilly Foster and have a hamburger, or the people that golf or go to events at Putnam County National Golf Course are benefiting from that. But the average person who just wants to go to work or go to the store or take their children to school and have to ride on poor county roads, they're the ones that are suffering for it. And the Route 6 project was actually a state project. It wasn't a county project, so I mean, we can be very happy that Route 6 was done, but that wasn't with our county funds. We can do better. We can do better with keeping our employees in the crafts that they were hired to perform.
May I, pardon me,
You can use your rebuttal card if
Yes,
you'd like.
yes, thank you. Let me see if I can get this on here. This is interesting from my opponent to talk about the importance of paving of the roads, considering that
Hold
she
it a little
slashed,
further away.
that she slashed her own highway department budget. The superintendent of highways in the town of Kent continually calls me to ask for additional resources, for equipment, for personnel. Just this week, we've accomplished the opportunity to find $20,000 so that there's a VMS board available in the town of Kent that he wasn't able to get the funding for from the town of Kent. He struggles with the supervisor of the town of Kent as she's reduced her funding for the highway department over time. As a matter of fact, she asked him to lay off someone this year so that she could make sure that she had her zero budget.
Thank you. And we have a rebuttal from Ms. Fleming.
Well, the highway superintendent has actually very frequently talked about the good working relationship that he and I have. And through the efforts of the town board, we have actually bought millions of dollars worth of equipment for the highway department, which was formerly failing. We've built a new salt shed, we've bought a number of trucks, we have worked collaboratively together. Even though he's a Republican and I'm a Democrat, we have looked beyond that. With regard to slashing his budget, we had discussed a bonding program just because in the years prior to our administrations, the roads had fallen into such disrepair that he has felt we could just do that. And let me tell you, it's worth it to the people of the town of Kent to bond at this point where it's a little less expensive instead of raising the taxes 4.5%, which is what our county executive would be doing if she weren't taking money out of the general fund.
Thank you.
Can I ask you, if you clip it onto your desk, then you won't keep getting a little bit closer to your mouth and getting that. No, that's too close. You'd have to put it on your ruffle or something. Just because it keeps getting closer and closer.
Okay, how's that?
Let's see how that works.
Test?
Fixing a little technical difficulty.
Test?
here. That's better, I think.
Test?
Okay. All right, the next, no, we're on the next question. This question is another kind of infrastructure question. Will you be promoting the burial of utility cables to reduce the impact of severe storms? And if so, what measures will you advocate? And you go first.
I do?
No, who went first the last time?
I think I did.
That's what I thought, so. You go first.
No, I went first. Oh, okay, all right, doesn't matter.
Ms. Fleming, just go first. all right?
Okay, that's fine.
It's hard with the rebuttals. We lose track.
You know, this is an issue that has come before us in our talks with NYSEG. The Board of NYSEG has met with the town supervisors after the storms of March and, actually we met with the new president in January, we met after the storms in March, and again after the tornadoes. And this is something that I have brought up to them because clearly one of the major problems in this county, and one of the beauties of this county, is we have so many trees. But having so many trees leads to trees coming down during these major storms, and that's one of the main reasons that we lose power, and we lose power very frequently in Putnam County. I mean, it's a joke in my neighborhood that we say, if a sparrow coughs, we lose power. So we need to look at that. NYSEG might be a little resistant to that, and we need to also look at what the cost would be for NYSEG to do that and how that would be passed on to the consumer, because everybody that opens their NYSEG bill at this point knows it's expensive enough already. But the balancing test of would it be worth it to have consistent power instead of these long outages might be something to consider. So I would certainly work with NYSEG to try to come up with a plan that we could do something and it would be cost effective. But another thing in Putnam also that has been brought up is rock. So we really have to see if this is going to benefit the consumer.
All right, thank you. Ms. Odell.
Yes, right after the last weather event, severe weather event with the tornadoes, I sat with the CEO of NYSEG and our Bureau of Emergency Services, Commissioner, and major stakeholders, business owners in the area, to put everyone together to the table to talk about the infrastructure and what can we do to avoid the next time we have another major weather event that we're over 90% dark. One of the things that have been optioned to us is to expand the cut and clearing of the tree areas on private properties and easements. Now that sounds like a logical thing for many of us until a crew shows up at your house and says they're going to take that beloved evergreen tree down that you've decorated and loved for years because it's in a zone which will take down power lines, which could possibly kill an entire circuit. But it has been done before. It's been done upstate. It has been effective. So the conversations about burying lines, to my opponent's point, yes, it is difficult because Putnam County does have a lot of ledge in our county, but where we can bury, we will. And Vision Brewster, the Village of Brewster Revitalization Project, will include the burying of overhead wires, just as we did in the hamlet of Carmel many years ago, which has been very effective and helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Was that better?
Much better.
Okay.
Much better. Okay, and Ms. O'Dell, you'll go first on this one. Do you support solar farms, as long as we're on the issue of power? Do you support solar farms, even though some Putnam towns might oppose the solar farms?
As I mentioned last Thursday evening at the previous debate, Tilly Foster Farm has been identified as the perfect place to expand on our discussion about renewable energy, solar farm in particular. There's 199 beautiful acres of property up at Tilly, and there's a lot of opportunity there to take a look at it. Article 9 is something that our county is embracing now for renewable energies. It's also, we've also put an RFP out. So our Capital Projects Committee, which is a very critical committee, moving projects forward, $53 million worth of projects we are moving forward on a continual basis. Article 9 and renewable energy and solar energy and energy efficiency in sum total is something that we address at our capital project meetings on a monthly basis.
Thank you. The next question.
Do I get to answer? Sorry. Solar farms is an issue that has come before the Town of Kent Town Board, and it is not reflected in our code because when our code was written, utilities that were foreseen were not solar. So the town board, we have, at the town level, have voiced our interest in doing this. I think at the county level, it's a great idea, not only though at someplace like Tilly, but on county buildings. We can actually use solar paneling on county buildings, maybe in the parking lots of our, we have a lot of dead space in our county-owned properties that could be utilized for solar, and I think it would be a wonderful idea for the people of this county to move forward in this area, and I would absolutely support doing so.
Okay, thank you. Now the next question. And Ms. Fleming will go first. This question is, I live and work in this county and I have adult children with a college education. My kids need employment. How do we get big businesses to move here? How would you address the need for more employment in the county?
Well, I think one of the ways that we address the need for employment is, first of all, we want to encourage small business. We want to encourage the mom and pop, but we also want to bring smart business development into this community that pays a good wage. And doing that has been something that I've been really working on in the town of Kent. Right now, I'm working with Clancy Relocation Logistics to bring a 400,000 square foot warehouse. Clancy is an amazing employer and an amazing partner with the communities that it develops in. Another thing we're doing is we're working with a group to bring 2 hotels, an indoor water park, a convention center, and a truck stop. And those will be jobs. We need to bring jobs. We also need to realize that there's an economy that hasn't been tapped, and that is people can telecommute. People can have, internet businesses. It's not just brick and mortar. We can't just look at retail. We can't look at competition with our restaurants and businesses in this county. The county should not compete. And maybe if we didn't compete with those businesses, we could draw more to this county.
Thank you.
Thank you. One of the most exciting initiatives that I've brought to the table with our administration is the pilot program. It's called Putnam Invests in Leaders of Tomorrow. And we budget in cooperation with the legislature for about 45 positions for our local youth to find employment during the summer months. Now, we have a couple of caveats to that program. One, the children cannot be children of employees. It's open to the taxpayers. They have to have a certain grade standard, and they have to have some kind of an interest in the possibilities of public service. It's been in our programs and been budgeted for the last 5 years. It's extremely successful. We've seen many of our interns move on to careers outside of government, but some are interested in government. That's called building a succession plan. But as far as our economic development goes, we have the opportunity right now to have an international company, the Alexandrian Distillery Company, who have identified the hamlet of Carmel, again, the county seat, as a place that they'd like to invest $40 million in a very exciting project, which will bring tons of jobs of all different skill sets to this area, but will also be another destination, a point of attraction for the Hudson Valley and the New York City area, but also more interesting than that, internationally. Their business model is looking to bring folks from Europe, Asia, here to Putnam County to see what we have to offer. And Alexandrian is truly a very exciting and telling moment for Putnam County.
Thank you. Second to last question. What are you going to do to reduce property taxes? And please give specifics. And Ms. O'Dell will go first.
We'll continue to do the same thing that we've always been doing. We're going to pay down our debts. We've been very aggressive with that. The elimination of the short-term debt helps us take down the long-term debt even further. Infrastructure in this county is a big challenge. That's why we focused on the sewer and the water infrastructure. Being a watershed county, bringing good sustainable growth and economic development here will lower our property taxes. Raising sales tax lowers property tax. It's not very complicated. Smart growth, looking at Envision Brewster, being partners with the team in Brewster in revitalizing that area, taking advantage of the Hudson Valley hub of commerce, working in partnership with Metro North, with the MTA, something that county government has never done before. Building a strong relationship with the DEP has allowed us to transform the Putnam County Golf Course and the Tilly Foster Farm into the beautiful destinations, sustainable revenue destinations they are today. And more importantly, a place for the first time in Putnam County where you can actually go as a family with friends and enjoy yourself. Last Saturday evening, over 700 families attended an event at Tilly Foster, and I cannot tell you how many folks, my age, older and younger, said, Mary Ellen, thank you, because finally we can go somewhere and relax and enjoy each other's company in Putnam County for the first time.
Thank you.
What are you going to do to reduce property taxes? Please be specific.
Okay. I think it's interesting that the county executive talks about what she's going to do to reduce property taxes when she's been in office since November of 2011 and hasn't done any of those things yet. Our taxes in Putnam County have gone up 10.94% in her administration. And every year, not only does she raise taxes, but she takes from the general fund so she doesn't have to raise them more. In the town of Kent, what I have done and what I will do for the county is I look at the budget line by line. We cut fat, we stopped cronyism, we stopped patronage jobs. We eliminated all that, and it makes a difference. And with smart budgeting, we can do it here. You know, we have right now a position, it's called the Commissioner of Planning, and it's a nice paying job. I wouldn't mind taking it, except I'm not a planner. But that hasn't stopped the current holder of that job, who is also not a planner. She's an attorney just like me. But in the town of Kent, we have a planner, because I know I'm not one. So that's what I do. I'd cut the fat, I would budget more wisely, I'd stop throwing money into projects like, our golf course, which the county executive said is on solid financial ground. Yet we anticipated $172,000 in revenue and are $223,000 in the hole.
Thank you.
My rebuttal, please, yes.
Card was raised.
Just for a point of clarification, I did not say what I was going to do. I said what I am going to continue to do. It's interesting, my opponent, her town is the highest taxed town in Putnam County. Today's statistics has the town of Kent as having the highest crime rate in Putnam County. Patronage, jobs, and cronyism is interesting, considering that in 2010 I was the one who was the Republican outlier who put her head in the jaws of the lion to say that Club Putnam was ruining this beautiful county that I grew up in. If I was looking to fill a patronage job, my deputy county executive office has been empty since September, when he left to go to Washington, D.C. I could have very easily have filled that job, but I made a responsible decision and said, I can fill that job, or I could return $200,000 back to the taxpayers. And I know I can do this job without the deputy. I know I can do it and be the president of the New York State Association of Counties. And I know I can do it going into an election season, because I know what I am able to do, and I know what I've been able to do.
Thank you. We have another rebuttal.
That was my last one. Well, it's interesting that the county executive says she's continuing to do that, but yet our tax rate increase doesn't reflect that made these changes. And yes, the town of Kent is the highest taxed town in the county, but you know what it hasn't seen since I've been there? It hasn't seen an increase. The town of Kent is a beautiful town. It's basically rural. We don't have a lot of area for commercial development. We're not like some other towns, but what we do have is nature. What we do have is a quality of life that people chose to live in Kent because of. And what we also have is a police department that, unlike what the county executive has said, has made it one of the safest cities in the state. It's actually in the top 20 cities. It was just recently named. That and Carmel are in the top 20. We love our police department in the town of Kent. We just had an incident, and they responded, and they're fantastic, and that's why we live in Kent.
Thank you. All right, this will be the last question. It's kind of a summing up question. In your opinion, we've talked about a lot of things, infrastructure, taxes, whatever. What, in your opinion, is the most significant issue facing Putnam County in the next 10 years? And you will go. You were the last rebuttal.
That's fine.
So, all right, it's.
We've had some confusion.
I know, Ms. O'Dell, that's right.
Yes, go.
Okay.
One of the many
What is your
significant challenges that we are facing, everyone I believe in this room understands the importance of our challenge for the opioid substance abuse epidemic in this county. I applaud the legislature for the passing of the T21 legislation and the vaping to save our children. The opioid addiction in this county not only affects each and every one of us as individuals, as parents, as grandparents, as friends, as peers, It affects us as business owners and as employees. We deal every day with the community-based providers in this county who give it their all. I was late this evening because I was attending the vigil for the Domestic Violence Coalition. I've attended it every year. We work together in this community. Our social responsibilities are to each other. My leadership as county executive is focused on our social responsibilities. And I do believe if we do not get in front of this vaping, and we do not get in front of the fentanyl, and the drugs, and the heroin, and the substance abuse, this generation that we know now will not have the American dream that our parents hoped for us. We must get aggressive. Our One Army on the War on Addiction, the task force that we have put together, the community-based organizers have organized, and this county is a county that everyone in New York State is looking at as for a direction and a point of source on how we are handling drug treatment court, saving lives, and giving people second chances.
Thank you. The question is what you think is the most important issue facing Putnam County for the next 10 years.
The most important issue, I believe, facing Putnam County is people are leaving. That's the most important issue. People are leaving because they can't afford to live there. You know, I go door to door and I hear it. I hear people whose kids are just finishing college who have to downsize because they can't afford to live in this county. And I hear it when I go to Carmel, and I hear it when I go to Southeast. I hear it all over this county. People's children can't afford to live here and work at, you know, starter jobs. People are not being listened to. And we have to, in this county, unfortunately, if we don't start inviting everybody to the table and seeing what their needs are and actually meeting their needs, we're going to have a county that is bereft. We're going to lose our seniors that we care so much about because they're not going to be able to afford to live here. Our young people aren't going to be able to afford to live here. And maybe people that have paid for their houses and maybe people that retired with good pensions can. But other than that, we're losing our population. Everybody wants to leave because it is way too expensive. And we have to make this a livable community that responds to its population's needs.
Thank you very much. We will now have closing statements. And Ms. Odell will go first and Ms. Fleming second. You have 1 minute for the closing statement.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the League of the Women Voters for putting this forum on and for all of you for being good citizens and attending this forum. As I said in the beginning of this campaign, when I congratulated my opponent for entering the race, that 2 women would be able to tell each other's stories about their vision for this county. I believe that the next 4 years in this county are very critical. I have been living in this county my entire life. I know each corner. I know all of the issues. I am proud of our record. I am proud of the team I've built. I'm proud of all of the community-based organizers who have stepped up to keep the quality of life in this county. I'm very proud that my parents decided to come here to Putnam County to live their American dream. It's that I take to the 3rd floor every day. I love my family, and this county is my family. I have made a commitment to do what's right by the people of this county. I will continue to do that. I ask for your support for 4 more years to finish the good work. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will hear from Ms. Fleming.
Thank you. I too love this county. And as in the town of Kent, where we respect not only our residents but our employees, I want to work for our residents and I want to work for our employees in this county. You know, we have a county government that has had 3 unions without a contract for years. These are good, hard-working people. These are the backbone of our county. So while we give our legislators or allow our legislators to take a 14% raise, who gets a 14% raise? We don't honor our working men and women who give their sweat to our county, who work hard for our county. And let me tell you, when I am county executive, I will honor all our residents, I will honor our employees, and everybody will have a seat at the table. Thank you, and I hope you come out and vote for me on November 6th.
Another spirited debate. We're now getting ready for our final forum of the evening, this round of presentations. Thank you very much. I don't know who's supposed to go first. Okay. Mr. Murphy.
I am.
No, Peter's.
What? Oh, okay.
Oh, yes.
All right.
So they switched
All right.
it on us already.
So we are here
to stay
to
on
hear from the candidates for New York State Senate 40th District. It was determined in the coin toss that Mr. Harcum will go first and Mr. Murphy will go second. We will then rotate the order for the remainder of the forum. So first up will be, just waiting for people to settle down. First up will be
Okay.
Mr. Harcum. There's 2 minutes for the opening statement. Mr. Harcum.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me all right? There we go. Can you hear me now? Thank you very much. Maybe I'll lower it a little bit. Hope this is not counting on my time.
And I will let you know that you can't go ahead of here because if you get close to this, you get all that ringing. And you have to have yours off while his is on and vice versa, okay?
It's off.
Great.
Gotcha. There we go. How we doing?
Turn it off. Turn it off.
How about if you trade that one back and forth?
How about we just, can you guys hear us in the back?
Yes.
Okay, how about we do that?
Can the video recorder here?
Try it one more time. Let me
Mine
stand
works
up.
fine.
How we doing now? No?
It's not on. The rest of it.
How we doing now? There we go. There we go.
You just can't move.
No, I will not move. Thank you very much for having us. Thank you, Senator, for being here. Pleasure to join you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I am Pete Harcum, running for New York State Senate. Our state is under assault from extremists in Washington, and it is my contention that the New York State Senate majority has abdicated its right to lead. This past session, they couldn't pass routine things like red light cameras for school districts or local tax warrants, let alone address important issues of the day like reproductive health care, common sense gun safety without impacting people's Second Amendment rights, Child Victims Act, health care, election reform, and many other important issues. Our schools here in the 40th District are underfunded to the tune of nearly $77 million, $12 million right here in Putnam County. So that causes us as taxpayers to make up the shortfall. And while we're paying extra for the lack of foundation aid, New York State Senate Republicans and Senator Murphy voted for tens of millions of dollars for charter schools down in New York City. Our downtown streets are pocked with storefronts that say vacant on them because they can't compete with big box store chains and online retailers. And our planet is really at the precipice from the impacts of climate change. We need a state senator who will fight for Hudson Valley values with common sense solutions to the challenges our families face. And we need a senator who's willing to discuss these issues and take the tough votes on the Senate floor, not bury them. So I look forward to your questions this evening and a lively discussion. Thank you.
I remind you to hold the applause until the end, all right? Mr. Murphy?
Everybody hear me?
Opening statement.
Can everybody hear me now? Yes. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the Women League of Voters. I thank Mahopac Library for hosting us in this beautiful venue. It is awesome. I have been your state senator for the past 4 years. It has been an absolute honor and a privilege. I try and keep my politics pretty simple. It's taking care of people who actually can't take care of themselves, the OPWDD. It's actually taking care of our first responders, people that come running in when we're running out. Our seniors, who have made our community the most beautiful place it could be, and when they get in their golden years, they now don't want to, but they have to leave because the taxes are so high in New York State. For our veterans out there, every single veteran, if there's a veteran in here tonight, thank you. Thank you for your service. I have no idea where the wheels fell off the bus. The red carpet should be rolled out for anybody who protects the United States of America. And a huge thing for me has been heroin. I've sat on the New York State Task Force for the past 2.5 years. I've traveled all over New York State. It is, I don't think there's one person in this room that doesn't know somebody who knows someone who's been affected by it. Well, I gotta tell you, and I don't pat myself on the shoulder too often, believe it or not, but we passed the most comprehensive legislation in New York State, if not the United States. You are not allowed to get a 30-day script anymore. That's my legislation. It is the most comprehensive, that to the point, Senator Gillibrand and God rest his soul, Senator McCain have picked it up to take it on the national level. And I believe in term limits. The problem with Albany, you have professional politicians. You have people who've never worked a day in their life. They have no idea what a 941 tax is. They have no idea what a disability tax is. They have no idea what a workers' comp tax is. But there's a lot more to come, and I'd love to follow back on the foundation aid and the school aid and the Tappan Zee Bridge.
Thank you. Our first question will be about health care. We had, I think, 6 or 7 different questions about health care. I'm going to read a couple of the cards. Most of them deal with just the cost of health care in general. Polls show that paying for health care costs are a top issue for families. How are you going to help families, especially those with pre-existing conditions, cover their health care? Many families are only one illness away from bankruptcy. I actually have 3 of these cards. What do you propose to do to protect these families? And related to that is, do you commit to sponsor the New York Health Act as approved by the Assembly, and will you make that a top priority? If not, why not? So I'd like to hear from you about your position on these healthcare issues. And Mr. Murphy will go first.
Yeah. Well, I'll actually answer your question. No, I will not support that. Absolutely not. As a healthcare provider for over 25 years, my wife has been a nurse for over 27 years. If you go Google RAND, R-A-N-D, go read their 125-page report. Statistics, I just want to make sure that this is right. The RAND, it's a $311 billion hit. 300. Our New York State budget is $170 billion, and it will be a conservative $312 billion hit. That's a 156% increase. Now, for a household that's making $150,000, you will see your tax rate go from 6.45% to 18.3%. Now, we have some of the most brilliant people in New York State, right here in New York State, doctors. They will be leaving. But I do want to say one thing. My opponent is a huge proponent of this. His boss, Governor Cuomo, is adamantly opposed to this and said this in his speech. It has failed in California. It will fail here in New York. It will bankrupt New York. Do I believe something needs to be done? Absolutely. Single payer? No way. We will all be. We lost 1 million people in New York State over the past 8 years. You want to see a flood leaving New York State? There will even be more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
No?
No? There we go.
Hold it away from the body a little bit.
Thank you very much. First of all, the only boss I have is the constituents who I have represented. Right now, I am running for office full-time. I have no boss other than you, the voters. The RAND statistics that were quoted were out of context because the RAND study said in New York State we will save $2 billion on our health care costs. What they're talking about is a shift in costs, not new costs. Shifts, rather than going through private sector insurance companies, they will be going through the government instead. We'll be saving $2 billion a year. We spend more in this country as a percent of GDP on healthcare, and we have them among the lowest outcomes for any civilized economy. People are very anxious about being one illness away from catastrophic bankruptcy. Businesses like this because it will lower the cost. Doctors like it because they have just one person they're negotiating with. The hospitals like it because there's just one entity that they'll be dealing with. I think the bill in the Assembly needs work. This is not something that you just go in and you pass rotely. I've spoken to doctors, they have some suggested improvements, but that's why you have the committee process. That's why you sit down and you go over the issues and you bring in the experts on both sides of the issue, even people who disagree with you. You don't bury it like the New York State Senate Health Committee has done. Thank you.
Thank you. The second question will be answered first by Mr. Harcum. It's addressed to Senator Murphy, but I think it's meant for both of you. Please tell us your position on the Comprehensive Contraception Coverage Act. Mr. Harcum?
I support it, and it goes part and parcel with the Reproductive Health Care Act in that women have a right to make decisions between themselves and their doctor about their bodies, about their health care, and that they have a right to the full spectrum of contraception that is readily available by the medical community. And without companies putting their own moral filter on what is good health care. If we're going to have health care and equal access for everybody, we need the Contraceptive Act because we need to have equal access. It's not fair that a woman who works for one company may have access to full contraception and a woman who works for another company will have no access. So part and parcel, government should not be deciding healthcare decisions. Doctors and women should be deciding healthcare decisions.
Let's try to keep the applause till the end, okay? Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
Yeah, first of all, great question. Since 1970, New York State's law is you are allowed to have an abortion up to 24 weeks. What this does is takes second and third trimesters up to 9.5 months. 9.5 months. Oh, yes, it does. Don't shake your head. Yes, it does. 9.5 months to have an abortion. Performed by a non-doctor. By a non-doctor. So, would you like to control the crowd or should I? So that's what the Reproductive Health Care Act does. Okay?
We can have a follow-up question later, all right? Let's not have booing and that sort of thing. Well,
thank you. That's what the Reproductive Health Care Act does, is allow second late-term abortions.
This is the Comprehensive Contraception
which runs
Coverage
a
Act.
parallel with it, where I'm answering it, okay? So
please, audience, please, let's let the candidates speak.
this opens up the door for late-term abortions, okay? And I am not going to ever vote for that. Absolutely not. You'll never get my vote for late-term abortions in the Reproductive Health Care Act. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really surprised that the audience. you know, we have police here to calm everybody down if we need that, but I hope we don't. You've always been very good. I've moderated here before, and I haven't heard all this sort of this noise. All right, so let's keep it civil. Let's have room for the candidates to speak. Okay. All right. So that was the question on the Comprehensive Contraception Coverage Act. The next question, and by the way, the candidates have agreed to hang around after they're through with their questions, so I'm sure while we're having coffee and cookies, you can follow up on some of these. Well, we'll have to make some more or something, all right. All right, the next question, and please, let's be civil, all right? This question is, it's a long, but do you support, this question, Mr. Murphy will go first. Do you support extreme risk protective order legislation, which gives families, school administrators, and law enforcement an avenue to prevent an individual in crisis from harming themselves or others by temporarily removing firearms and prohibiting the purchase of another gun? And will you vote for S7133A? If not, why not? If yes, what will you do to ensure that this legislation is brought to the floor?
What is 7131A?
S7133A. The question was written by Mary Kirsch. Well, why don't you just address the issue then of this extreme or risk protective order legislation?
I'll give you what I think, kind of guns and making sure kids are safe, the whole 10 yards.
With a mental problem.
Oh, absolutely. So, do I believe in your Second Amendment right? Absolutely. No, unequivocally. You have a right to defend yourself. Make no mistake about this. Governor Cuomo will take your guns away from you. Okay? Secondly, hold it.
Please, let him speak.
Do I believe? I did not vote on my town board budget when I was a town councilman unless we had SRO officers in our schools. I have a daughter in the high school, I have another son in the high school, and I have a son in the elementary schools. Putnam County, and I don't know, I saw the sheriff here earlier, I give him kudos in the county executive to put an SRO officer or an SPO officer in every single school in Putnam County. That's every bill that I've signed up for in New York State, is to take care of our kids, harden our schools. As a matter of fact, I had, my bill that I authored is the Domestic Terrorist Act. Anybody who shoots a gun within 1,000 feet of a school automatically gets charged as a domestic terrorist. So to make sure our kids are safe, our most sacred ground, absolutely anything. Alarms to go in. I went into a school, Brewster School. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're done on it. Okay, thank you. Let's have stability, okay? So the issue is...
Yeah, thank you. I just asked that we all kind of chill a little bit and let's be respectful of everybody's answers. We're talking about the red flag bill here, which doesn't infringe upon people's Second Amendment rights. What the red flag bill does is it allows teachers, counselors, the police to petition a judge to temporarily remove firearms from someone deemed to be at risk to themselves or others. You look at the Maryland newsroom shooting of a few months ago. The woman who was stalked by the perpetrator went to the police and said this was the most dangerous man she'd ever encountered. They had no recourse to take that weapon away, which he obtained legally through a background check. Had they had this red flag bill, they could have petitioned a judge, and 5 journalists may still be alive today. Now, I'm a firearms owner, I will admit that, and I want to protect the Second Amendment, but this is common sense gun safety. 11 states, now 12 states have passed this. Thank you, I see the time. 12 states have now passed this, and 45% of the cases of mass shootings, they go back and interview people and they say, yes, we saw something was wrong with this individual. And so the suicide rates as well, we can prevent people, especially young people, from taking their own lives if we can remove the firearms. So the red flag bill is common sense, does not infringe upon Second Amendment rights, and I'll vote for it in my first 30 days.
All right. This question will go to Mr. Harcum first. With Roe v. Wade likely, and this, by the way, there were about 4 questions on this. With Roe v. Wade likely to face repeal, do you support legislation protecting women's right to reproductive choice?
I don't think it's a question of if Roe v. Wade will be repealed. Donald Trump, when he appointed Kavanaugh, did so with the express intent of repealing Roe v. Wade. And New York state law regarding abortion is in the criminal code dating back to the 1970s, prior to Roe. So once Roe is gone, we snap back to that level of criminal code, not even protection. So it's critical that we codify Roe v. Wade in state law now, and that's what the Reproductive Health Act does. And I've said many times, and I said when I stood with Planned Parenthood, this is another one of the 3 bills that I will pass in the first 30 days.
Mr. Murphy?
Yeah, I think you've already heard my answer on that. I think everybody's already heard about it, but there's absolutely no way with the Reproductive Health Care Act, the second and third trimesters. Philosophically, we can all have our differences, but that is nothing. I will never vote on late-term abortions for second and third trimesters, and that's the end of that. It just, to think that within that you would allow someone after 24 weeks to have an abortion performed by a non-doctor is unbelievable. Up to 9.5 months. To me, that's killing babies. That's killing babies, okay? So that's it.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to another topic. And Mr. Murphy will go first on this one. Would you be supportive of creating a sanctuary state to protect immigrants like many of our families were?
So I'll let you know, my wife, her mother and father immigrated here back in 1966 from Ireland, and I would have never been married to my wife. We're all a nation of immigrants right here. At the end of the day, there's checks and balances. When my in-laws immigrated here, they had to have a sponsor. They had to have someone sponsor them. They had to have a picture, they had to have a fingerprint, they had to, what are you doing here? Now, I would love to take people that are in the shadows and bring them out and give them a social security number. That would help America. That would build up their self-esteem. That would allow them to get out and matriculate into the workforce here for us. So immigration, you can see what's going on right now from coming over from Ecuador and through Guatemala and now into Mexico. You're gonna have 10,000 people here. Not only you're gonna have an economic problem, you're gonna have a health problem. It's just checks and balances. We are all immigrants here. Just come here the right way. Nobody should have to wait 6 years or pay $50,000 to become a U.S. citizen. Absolutely not.
Thank you. Mr. Harcum?
Thank you.
Question was whether or not
Yeah.
sanctuary state.
The one thing I do agree with the senator on is we all do come from somewhere. 3 of my 4 grandparents were immigrants. I look around the room at the diversity just in this room, and it's about how we treat ourselves and how we treat other people, and are we an inclusive society? And our immigration system under this president is broken and grotesque. And we as elected officials need to speak out. And when children were ripped from their parents at the border and separated, that's not a Republican or a Democratic issue, that's a human rights issue, and we all should be outraged. They were right here in Lincolndale and Somers. We all should be outraged, not Republicans or Democrats, but as Hudson Valley residents, we should be outraged at that kind of thing. Years ago, when I was on the Westchester County Board, our policy was the only time ICE came into Westchester was when someone had been convicted of a violent crime, and then the county authorities turned them over to Immigration and Customs. A custodian, a 30-year resident of Mount Kisco, Temple Sherry Tafila, was just snatched off the street and deported. His 2 sons are citizens. His grandson is a citizen. That's a broken immigration policy. So whether you call it a sanctuary state or not, ICE is out of control, and it's because we have a president who's out of control, and we need to speak out about our broken immigration system.
We have 3 more questions. We're running out of time. Okay. On this one, Mr. Harkin will go
Speak
first.
faster.
All right. As the parent of a child who is sexually abused by a teacher and has not yet been able to psychologically deal with the stress and trauma of bringing charges against her abuser, would you please explain your stance on the Child Victims Act and the provision to hold institutions accountable?
First of all, to the person who asked that question, you have my sympathy. I know people who were abused as children, and it's a very, very traumatic thing that people don't ever get over and may not be able to speak about until later in life when they're adults, and by then the statute of limitations has run out. The Child Victims Act does 2 things. It extends the statute of limitations to hold that abuser accountable in a court of law, and just as importantly, it holds the institutional enablers accountable, whether it's the U.S. Gymnastics Association, whether it's Michigan State, whether it's Penn State, whether it's a Catholic Church, whether it's a Boy Scout, or any of these venerable organizations that have been proven to cover up these abuses. That's enabling, and they are culpable, and they need to be held accountable. And so I talk about the 3 bills that I'll pass in my first 30 days. This is one of them. This is common sense. This is a no-brainer. The Assembly's done it. We need to do it in the Senate, and we'll do it in the first 30 days.
Yeah. Well, first of all, again, like Peter said, anybody who's ever been victimized, God bless you. I mean, our hearts go out to you. But at the end of the day, justice should be served. Anybody who touches any little kid, there's not a hole dark and deep enough for them, in my eyes. Case closed. That is just wrong in every sense of the word. What I've done, I've passed bills, the Victims Act. We had a scenario in Somers where we had someone victimize a little girl, come back and do their jail time, and move right next door back to the victim. How's that? The child safety zones. Any level 2 or level 3 sexual predator is not allowed to live within 1,000 feet of any church, synagogue, school, anything that houses kids. Not at all. What I was very disturbed about, though, is that the governor, when he paroled 26,000 people, he allowed level 2 and level 3 sexual predators to literally go back into an elementary school to vote. To vote. Go back in. You're allowed back in between 7 and 9 o'clock. Unbelievable. Right where they were praying. So anybody who touches any little kids, like I said to you, there's just a hole dark and deep enough, and it's not right in any way, shape, or form. I have 3 little kids. I know what I would do.
Mr. Harkam?
This is fun. We've never done this before.
He's using his rebuttal
I'm
card.
using my rebuttal card.
All right. You know the lot.
I would say just two things. Number one, if we are really serious about protecting children and protecting child victims, we must allow them to have their day in court and hold their institutional enablers accountable. We have to. That's number one. Number two, the issue of people on parole voting, that's our American system. We allow people a path back to a life. But according to the New York State Board of Elections, do you know how many sexual predators voted in the last election? Two, and under very, very, very strict guidelines. So I think it's not about that, it's about passing the Child Victims Act immediately.
Thank you.
I was going to rebut, but no, I'll save it.
All right. The next question has to do with Indian Point. Currently, I live next, the questioner says, currently I live less than 5 miles from the Indian Point nuclear power plant. There is a leaking storage pool on the premises and a pipeline running under it, as well as being built on a fault line. How will you address this potentially dangerous situation to ensure my family's safety and the value of my property? And
I think I go first.
You go first.
Yeah. So this is something that I've been to every governor's task force with the closure of Indian Point. We have no idea where we're getting the 2,200 megawatts. Right now, as we're speaking, we've had brown outages in Yorktown. We've had last night for 2 hours, we've had outages through NISEC over in Somers for 2.5 hours. Indian Point is crucial to our living. Whether you philosophically agree or disagree about nuclear energy, we have no idea. There's 1,200 jobs over there. This was the proverbial 3 men in a room, Riverkeeper, the governor, and Entergy meeting, and went in, unbeknownst to anybody, and pulled the plug on the entire thing with no plan. I've sat, NISO has come in, New York State Independent System Operators, they've come in 3 different times with 3 different plans. Your electric bills, and I'm not going to tell you this, I told you so, but your electric bills are not only double, triple, but possibly quadruple. It is a plan that the governor never thought about, wanted to close, but didn't have any plan about it. And Indian Point, the school district's is down $25 million over there. The people in the area over there, their taxes are going to double and triple, but the energy over there, we're now opening up 2 natural gas plants in retrospect to, along with Bayonne, New Jersey. So we're importing our energy and we're exporting our jobs in New York State. Again, we've lost over 1 million people over the past 8 years.
Thank you. Mr. Harkam, Indian Point.
Yeah, I'll try and get specifically to the question, but Indian Point is closing because Entergy is getting out of the nuclear energy business. And that's just the cold facts of economics. There's plenty of energy in a deregulated market. In the deregulated marketplace, you don't need to have your energy supplier next door. We need to close that gas pipeline. I opposed the pipeline back when I was in the county legislature. One, it's dangerous. Several state agencies have written a FERC, and until those questions are answered, the pipeline needs to be shut off. Further, gas infrastructure emits benzene, which captures twice as much heat as carbon does, and all kinds of benzene and other carcinogens are incredibly unhealthy. So gas is not the way to go. If we want to save jobs and create high-paying jobs, a clean, renewable energy is the way to go. Wall Street Journal reported a year ago that private sector investments, not government subsidies, private sector investments in clean energy are now double what carbon-based and nuclear investments are. Wall Street is recognizing that it's cheaper and more cost-effective to generate a kilowatt of electricity through wind, through solar, through tidal. That's the way we need to go. They're good paying jobs. Let's focus on that. Let's shut down the gas infrastructure, and let's make the shareholders. It's for dramatic effect, I guess. The Shoreham closure set the blueprint, and it was Shoreham and it was LIPO. Their shareholders were responsible for making the taxpayers whole. And that's what we should be doing, is having the Entergy shareholders make the taxpayers whole.
Thank you.
You got everybody? Yeah, so with regards to the three men in the room and the shutting down, well, you don't go into business to lose $200 million, and that's what exactly was happening to Entergy. $20 million a year to try and get recertified. And that was just fought tooth and nail by Riverkeeper. And Riverkeeper was in the room when they made the deal. And Riverkeeper's getting treated, there was $15 million in the community fund. That's accessible to Riverkeeper. The other thing is that what you're not talking about is CPV. We all know about CPV, Pete. CPV has now lost their air quality control permit. So they can't even get up and running because DEC shut them down. So it's the proverbial government, the right hand doesn't talk to the left. DEC shut down CPV, Community Power Venture, when the governor needs CPV open to keep Indian Point closed. So the proverbial government getting involved in all this is exactly what is wrong. You have...
Thank you. I saw the stop sign. All right, this question, it's actually your last question.
Question.
Yeah. The question is, how will you improve mental health care in our county? And Mr. Murphy will go first.
I think I took Indian Point first.
Oh, that's right. It's part Mr. Harkin. All right.
That's a good question, and if we want to address issues like substance abuse in an honest, comprehensive way, and mental health issues and mental health parity in an honest way, we need to have a discussion of healthcare reform. Whether you believe in single payer or not, that's fine. Have the discussion. The Senate Republicans had no discussion. They buried the issue. There's no doubt that we need more community mental health services. We need more community substance abuse services. And one of the key components of that is insurance reform. Because we all know people who've had to spend $40,000 to $50,000 out of pocket to send a loved one to a treatment center because that treatment center won't take the insurance that they may have. So it's critical that if we're going to talk about community mental health and substance abuse treatment, we need to talk about healthcare reform. And quite honestly, the Health Committee and the Senate Republican majority stifled all debate on healthcare reform this last term.
Murphy.
So Pete brings up some great points, honestly, with the substance abuse and mental health. Substance abuse, I'm not sure if they're here, but drug crisis in my backyard. It has been an honor to team up with you. You are boots on the ground, literally saving people's lives. What we've done with the approach is it's prevention, treatment, recovery, and enforcement. You're never going to get the enforcement through the assembly, but the fifth wheel that I've been trying to do is the mental health aspect of the absolute epidemic that is ravishing not only just New York State, but the United States. So what do we do? I know the county executive right here in Putnam County went after Big Pharma. That's exactly what I did. We passed, like I said, the most comprehensive bill. No more 30-day scripts for a tooth extraction, broken bone, or surgical procedure. Any type of acute injury, 7 days only. That's where this whole epidemic started. I sit on the mental health committee. Senator Ort is the committee chairman. It has been absolutely decimated. Mental health committee has been absolutely decimated financially. We are going to have a big problem in 3 to 5 years down the road. I will continue to fight on this epidemic. It is just the scratching the surface, but 3 years ago, when you talked about heroin, you thought some sort of bad person sitting in a corner with a needle in their arm. It's not that. It's in pill form. It's the professionals. It's very pervasive. It's in every household. It's in every community, and we need to stop it. The mental health aspect of it is the fifth wheel that I will continue to work on.
We've now come to the closing statements, and I would like to just mention to people that the policeman brought me a little note before. You're probably wondering what the note said, and it said to please use, when you do leave, both the rear and the front exits because of the traffic issue, okay? But now let's have the closing statements. And Mr. Harcum presented first at the beginning, so Mr. Murphy will present his closing statement first. 1 minute, please.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the Women League of Voters. Thank you, everybody, for coming here. My friends and family, it has been an honor and a privilege to serve you for the past 4 years. I work my butt off. I have great people that help me out. We take care of approximately 325,000 people. Philosophically, we can disagree on a lot of different stuff, but at the end of the day, we are one community, and we should look out after one another. But some of the endorsements that I have, I'd like to just read off is going back to my opening statement and making sure that our community is safe. When you have people like him right here, for our police officers, we have to make sure our community is safe in a multitude of different ways. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve you. God willing, I'll do another 2 years. But the Nurses Association, from CSEA to AFL-CIO to the police to the Medical Society, I have over 250 different endorsements with regards to people that actually like the job that I've been doing. Some of you might disagree with me tonight. Obviously, a few boos here and there, but that's part of living in the community with one another. And I look forward to serving you for another 2 years. So thank you.
Mr. Harcum?
1 minute. We'll be brief then. First, thank you for hosting us. Thank you all for coming. I do want to thank Senator Murphy for his service, having served 4 terms in the county legislature. I know the sacrifices that families make, so thank you for your service. These races are never personal for me, but this race is about values, and we have very different values about what this community will look like, who has a voice at the table, who we listen to, how we reach back to each other. And I just want to assure you that as your senator, in the first 30 days, we'll pass a Reproductive Health Act, the Child Victims Act, the Red Flag Bill. We will take up healthcare reform, election reform we didn't even get to tonight, full funding for foundation aid, and I will be the most transparent senator this district has ever had. We'll have a town hall every month. I'll release my taxes annually. We will get back to the reporters and to constituents personally, and any call that comes in, we'll get back to them in 24 hours. Thank you all. God bless you.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you very much. We'll now have closing remarks by the Vice President of the League. Please sit down. Please sit down.
Hey, Bob.
Please sit down.
Good to see you, buddy.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats for one more moment for the League's closing remarks. Please stay where you are.
Thank you very much, Mark. On behalf of the League, I wish to thank the candidates for accepting the invitation to our forum tonight, and I apologize for the noise.
Oh, that's okay.
We couldn't help it.
We make enough noise between us, that's all right.
We're actually honored to have everybody that came, all of the candidates. And thank you to the electorate who are here tonight to listen and learn. It may be the first time some of you have had this opportunity to meet the candidates. I want you to think of yourselves as an employer and this forum as a job interview for the candidates, because that is what it is. Thanks to Catherine Daring, our league moderator, who's moderated our guest before. And it was a tough job tonight, wasn't it? Thank you to Deborah Feynman and Mahopac Library. The Mahopac Library has worked in cooperation with us before, and Deborah has always been our liaison. Thanks to all the league members who helped out tonight. And since there's so many people standing, would you raise your hand? The league members that were helped out tonight. Without our member support, we could not do these forums for you. This is our last candidates forum for 2018. We've held 3 this year. 1 primary forum in August and 2 general election candidate forums in October. A lot of work and planning went into them, but we were rewarded by packed houses each night. We like to think of them as democracy in action. And so please don't forget to vote on November 6th. Don't ever think that your vote doesn't count, because it does count. Sometimes it can be the deciding vote that makes the difference. So thank you and good night.